left, right, out. So we get hit this morning with I guess what we call a positive jobs report, 261,000, whatever jobs. We all know those numbers are at least massaged, right? It's enough to pop the market despite what happened with the Fed. And one of the things that strikes me with this is this, like I've said before, whenever the market pops, when they're anticipating the Fed pivot, which yesterday they got, kind of a dose of reality there, that might not be happening. Every time they pop and you get, even if they're massage numbers like this, it sows the seeds of more Fed rate hikes, which with an economy that's been built upon 0% interest rates, cheap money, fractional reserve banking, and all that jazz, is specious at best. Once you're getting into the 4% range, and that works its way through the economy, when you have these zombie banks have to hit the bond market, like I keep saying, things start happening. Yesterday, now you look on CNBC's website, everything's roses again. It's always roses. They always tell you to buy stuff. They always tell you this and that. But yesterday, at the end of the day, there was a number of companies that have come out. Their listings, a number of these companies have come out and cutting jobs. They're cutting their workforce. It was more than just one. I mean, there was like 4 or 5 they had listed there just on the headline. I didn't even click on it. I just saw that, this one's cutting 15%, this one's cutting 20%, this one's cutting 10%, 5, whatever it was. But these headlines are going to start becoming, I guess, more of a mainstay. While we have contraindicating numbers, which are contradicting numbers, which in itself is weird. But we know the reality of the situation. You look at what the financial markets are doing, despite the manipulation. You look at the real numbers. You look at anecdotally around you when you go to the. Sorry, I got a gray hair. No, you look anecdotally around you as you traverse your day. We got the elections coming up now, and we'll see what happens there. I was listening to some reports, especially on people that even I support, that how their understanding of economics is not necessarily there. They understand some basic supply and demand issues, but they don't understand the Federal Reserve System or how the money that we're operating on, the fiat currency, how it's created through whatever different Fed tools and credit expansion and various other mechanisms. They don't understand that. They don't quite get the relationship between debt markets. It's kind of interesting, and I'm hoping, and the people that are listening are talking about possibly being able to, of course they have a lot more pull than I do, being able to get a hold of some of these people, to be able to teach them, to link them up with the right people to understand this. So a lot of moving parts happening, and these are in the governor's races. And of course, we got another couple of years with this yardbird up there, Biden, who doesn't. I don't even know if he knows where he's at times. But anyway, like I said, the market's popped. I'm still waiting for the day where things just collapse, where you have a flushing out capitulation moment, where you do have the Fed reverse roles, and it will happen. I haven't quite fully positioned for that. I'm still positioned for that flushing. I call it the flushing, where you have the capitulation moment. You have things, the breakers, being ticked off, the market breakers being ticked off, and some real pain being felt in the financial. That's what's going to get the Fed to pivot. Every time the market's trying to get ahead of them, they're fighting the Fed in a sense, which you don't. You're supposed to go with the Fed. It just reaps what the very opposite of what they're trying to get. It's painting everybody into a corner, as I see it, and we'll see what the ramifications are. I mean, there's things that are going on out here too that are just astounding. You look at the yield curve. We've been inverted for I don't know how many months, which is not a natural. It's not natural when you understand the time value of money and interest rates being the pricing and the allocation mechanism. This stuff isn't natural. But I will say this, granted, it's below the CPI number. With us being able to get away with this so much. And a part of me is like, well, maybe I'm wrong, or I'm not wrong, but maybe we can hold out for a long time. We can maintain at least some sort of interest rate that makes some semblance of sense, which, so that, guys can actually incentivize some sort of savings. Excuse me. Because I actually personally would like to be able to just save it in a savings account and get a little bit of a return. That's the whole point of putting your money in a bank, in a sense. Now we just do it of some sort of necessity. But before, I just rather had cold cash, but a bank had to incentivize me to put money in there. Usually by, giving me some kind of return on that asset, where we should be an asset. Finally, we're like, I don't know, my bank's at 2.75, probably bust up over 3% now. In the savings accounts, which I guess better than what we've been getting, and better than a sharp stick in the eye. It's nice to see you make 6, 7, or whatever, 60 cents or whatever a month or something. I mean, I'll start putting some more cash in there, just whenever whatever cash I'm not utilizing in the market, probably roll into there, and you're at least getting something. It also puts pressure on some of these dividend stocks a little bit when you're talking about yields, which should bring in some sort of, almost like a reversion type in some of these prices to more reflect the risk and the risk spectrum between that rate of return and your dividend and capital gain rate of return. But that's a whole nother issue. Anyway, it's interesting out there. The country is not the country that I recall when I was younger. There's a lot of craziness going on there, but like I said, I always go back to the chief node of this. So your problems are all these nodes throughout the spectrum. As you trace them back, they can all be traced back to economic issues, to the fiat money system, the banksters. I know that's so cavalier to say, but when you go through it, you realize a lot of these issues are driven, whether all of these social issues are driven by the lack of economic opportunity, the people trying to put anger derived from those issues into certain places, but they don't see the robbery that's taking place right from under them over the last number of decades, which has now put them at the point where they don't own anything. Most people don't own anything. They have loans on everything, and even then, some people don't even have that. They just got debt everywhere, so they don't own anything, and they're not happy. That's the only difference between what these Great Reset people are. They're just not happy, and they're trying to find that vent. And some people, that also has helped destroy the family structure as well, which everything parlays into itself into these weird social ideations and manifestations of psychological, hoopla, whatever, people chopping wieners off and multiple sex part, all kinds of weird craziness. So, I mean, those all the chief nodes there. I mean, I like that, it's hard to find somebody that understands that if you're outside that libertarian spectrum, and but you support the people that go back as far as you can in those nodes, and usually those are Republicans, or conservative Republicans. There's a lot of Republicans like the Romney types, the Cheney types that I don't have. Their antithesis to liberty. So that's what I guess I just summarize my way of finding political support, which in Arizona was pretty interesting. The Libertarian candidate wasn't bad. I know they're beating him up over the debate, but he did make some interesting points. But I will give him this. He dropped out. He put his support behind Masters, which I think Blake Masters, actually, his debate, what he did is I think he understands, from my understanding from people that I've listened to, is he actually has a grasp on monetary policy, or he's more of a Ron Paul type, which is great. But in the debate, he didn't really display that with his economic stance. But what he did is he hit the majority of people's feelings when it comes to relating price increases, relating these different issues into something tangible that they can have a visceral reaction to, which I understand that's communication. A lot of politics is, and so I hope he wins. He seems like a good character. Kari Lake, I hope she wins. That's the race I'm really looking at, Arizona. And the reason why I'm looking at Arizona more than any other race is because Arizona was a star wall. It was a wall, a beacon of libertarian idealism in the Republican Party. There was very freedom oriented. It was, it's notorious being one of the best gun state, even though people think Texas, but Arizona has been there. And Arizona is extremely conservative. Arizona has the best gun stores. I always say that. Arizona has the people that you want to go to war with are there. They have tactical gun store. Their gun stores are awesome, and the people are awesome. In fact, I was lamenting to somebody, talking about the disruption of the family and how there's so many divorces or whatever. I was like, when I count all the people that I know that are married, still together, have family and kids, they all live in southern Arizona for the most part, probably 85% of them. There's still, the immigration that happened, the legal immigration, those people that come to the country that lived there when I was growing up down in southern Arizona, they wanted to be American. They embraced those traditions of American values, and they maintain that family culture from the old country. And it was awesome to see, because that's what the country's about. It's not maintaining some separate identity. They still had that cultural aspect from back where they came from, but they realized what they were there for, and they embraced American culture, and they defended that. A lot of people in the military, Texas is a huge part of the military, but when I was in there, I was astounded by how many people one in my high school class, when I went to high school down there, was a majority of men were trying to get in the military, especially after September 11th. But when I was in the military, it was astounding to me how many people were from southern Arizona or Arizona. There was quite a few in relation to the population. And that was just in the Marine Corps, and I met some guys in the Navy. I've seen a lot of Army guys. They're like that. They were from that area. It's interesting. It's very interesting. So I always look at that race, because I couldn't believe what happened in Arizona in the last election. Despite there's a lot of retirees that live down there, there is a liberal staunch, a liberal streak in some of the bigger cities, but for the most part, Arizona is a very conservative state, extremely conservative state, and with values of liberty, not just they vote R for whatever reason, but there's staunch values that are entrenched in that state. And so I look at that as kind of a beacon of hope, hopefully. And we'll see other races are pertinent as well. I look at Mike Lee's race. Mike Lee was one of I used to say I had, if I didn't know a subject, or if there's a bill coming up, there was 3 guys that I could look to. And if 2 of the 3 agreed on something that I know, I could probably just, hey, I'll support that. And that was always Rand Paul, and it used to be Ted Cruz. I don't know so much completely anymore. And Mike Lee. When it comes to the Senate, on the House side of things, there's different guys, like Thomas Massie or whatever. But if those 3 guys agreed on a topic, I could almost surely that I would agree with them, if I didn't have time to look at it, or help me. I could be skeptical. But for the most part, those are my 3 guys that I could look to for. They had that liberty streak, of constitutionality, point of view of things. Mike Lee seems to be under attack in Utah. Hopefully he pulls that out. But you got the Romney types. And Romney, we don't even want to get it. I can go into his family history. There's some specious things there. Some interesting, weird things. I remember when I lost trust in that guy. I didn't even know about his family, his Mexican ties there to polygamy, his family's history in the East Coast or further east, all kinds of weird stuff going on with the Romneys. But it was when he was running for president, he went on an outdoor channel, a fishing show, and he was using a spinning reel backwards, upside down. And that's when I lost faith, because I could tell he was just faking the funk. And then that guy would sway with the wind or do whatever he needed to do to get elected. And and when you see a guy do something like that, the way he was acting, you can tell that he's just out of touch for any sort of normal person. I know that's a very shallow or unpolitical character distinction there, but it is something that alludes to other things, to relatability, to experiences, to the ability to represent a constituency. So I looked at that. I was like, oh man, I don't like this guy already. Anyway, I'll talk to you later. Peace.